Deepfake bodies, and as we said, so I'm writing a book with that title. I've been writing that book, and it's really about what I see as the dark future of sex and gender creativity. So it's a quite negative and critical book, a book that is very critical of AI and also of deepfake technology. Deepfakes is sort of the black sheep of AI. Everything that can go wrong with AI goes wrong in the arena of deepfake synthesis, deepfake manipulation, such as all the things you see on the right here. Yeah, deepfakes are created to attack people, to attack feminists, to attack queer people, to create a specific kind of misinformation about people. In terms of pornography, a lot of deepfakes is pornography, so I do write about that. A lot of my book is about deepfake porn, which is a very sad and difficult topic to deal with, but it's also a kind of porn that is a hate pornography. In the history of pornography, that is also quite unusual, that people would go at length to create something like that, but only to really slander people or to shame people or to blackmail people. I've written other books about sexually explicit media that were more happy books, and books that were investigating the newer porn industries that came with the World Wide Web and the Web 2.0. So there was a lot of positive developments there, actually, also in terms of gender and gender inclusivity and queer media. But now we have also reached a turn that this is becoming really hard to defend the use of sexually explicit media as such online. It's really a difficult arena to deal with. So it's a real juncture for people who are still interested in doing that, let's say. In terms of the deepfake problem in 2021, I mean, this problem is not new. It's been with us 5-6 years. Let's say in 2021, the Woodrow Wilson Center published this report about it. Again, it's listing all the negatives, all the harms that come with this kind of creativity. And it also called it malign creativity, which I think is an interesting concept to talk about, because we do often associate creativity with something positive, something beneficial. Yeah, so can creativity be malign, and what does that mean? Why are people reveling in a sexual imagination? Why are they then, you know, at the next level, stealing information online to synthesize these kind of porn movies? Yeah. So it's kind of very double in a way. People are still enjoying this kind of creativity, the deepfakers, let's say, and also sharing all that technical information and probably getting aroused by it as well. But there's always that other side, that the function of deepfake porn is not just for pleasure or arousal at all, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So this was 21, now we're in 2026, and now we're at a different level of it, and I call it between grok and a hard place. So you've all heard about the grok problem lately, that grok is the chatbot that, you know, and the AI bot that was developed by Elon Musk and X. And so these bots are available on X. Yeah? So that means that you could just be chatting with a bot and ask a bot to make these kind of movies for you. Yeah? So it's really easy to get this kind of non-consensual deepfake made for you, for instance, by a bot. So technically, it's much easier to do. So this is grok, and this is what everybody's talking about, right? That deepfake porn on grok is going out of control. A lot of people are very upset about it. And as a result of that, there's a lot of censorship. Yeah? So everything else besides grok is highly censored, as a matter of fact. This is what I call the hard place, between grok and the hard place. So there are a few platforms where people are creating a lot of these manipulative deepfakes, exploitative deepfakes. That goes on, and they technically cannot be really stopped. But meanwhile, all the other platforms, the entire internet is going through a real moment of real hard censorship as well. So people who want to be using sexualized media or sexually explicit media for benign purposes have actually nowhere to go. Yeah, this is kind of a rudimentary situation. Yeah, so another thing about Grok, for instance, it's not only that people are making exploitative deepfake porn on Grok, but also that the chatbots are perpetrating very conservative gender norms. That's another problem. Yeah, so this is just a visualization of these bots. And for instance, female bots are sexualized, eroticized in a way that is quite, not very imaginative. They are also obedient. Yeah, the female bots are quite obedient, while male bots are often programmed to be rough and abusive. So there's a kind of very stereotyped programming of gender identities in the bot world. So in a way that, again, it's also kind of new for us. So I think we've come in other media, digital media, or let's say in movie culture or in the arts, people have been questioning those gender norms, and feminists and queers have been participating in this, but AI brings us back in time, yeah? Because the programming of different gender norms or queer norms is very difficult for technical and other reasons. So I said that we're between Grok and a hard place, and so yeah, I meant that if you want to do something else, if you want to create benign nudity or sexuality or nonconformity, you will almost always be censored. You cannot do these experiments currently. I'm not saying it's going to be like that in 5 years, but right now there is the highest form of censorship. So, and I will get to that in a minute when I am going to explain a bit more about the artwork I'm making and the experiments that I'm doing with Gen AI platforms. It's actually very difficult for me to just generate human bodies. For instance, nude bodies. It's if you're looking at the imagery here, for instance, these are like some images I was making, and AI will always add like this body costume to your body, to your naked body. It's almost automatically added every time you want to create something like that. In my book, I also talk about the political backdrop of AI and what they call the authoritarian tech network. So there is a kind of politicized view on why these platforms are programming or creating their large language models in a certain way. So the large language models are having technical issues, but they're also, there's also political decisions being made. Yeah, and so I think this picture on the right, we're all familiar with that, so I put it in. So a reminder of how the different CEOs of the different tech platforms all had lunch with Donald Trump, and they didn't seem to have any problem with that. But that makes it also more clear that the way AI is developing is also a very political development. Yeah, so. And I think this is harder to talk about in a way because a lot of people dealing with AI want to deal with it in a depoliticized way. But since I'm dealing with sexual identity and sexual discrimination and all these kind of politicized developments in identity, I feel like I have to also look at AI in a political way, actually. I just want to also say something about other people who write about AI that way. I want to promote this book, Karen Howe's book. I don't know if anybody of you have seen this. It's The Empire of AI. And so this is about OpenAI, one company, but it's a very critical book, and she was actually working in one of these companies, so she has direct access to the people who run OpenAI. And it's a very big kind of history of how they have developed this company and also the ethics, the ethical decisions that the company is making. So anybody interested in what AI is really doing, I think this book is absolutely wonderful. And I actually going to explain a little bit more about it. I taped myself as Dr. The word goes to Dr. Jacobs. Now, here we go. It's called Empire of AI, and it's a quite critical book showing how these companies are producing Gen AI are actually growing a little bit too fast, are not able to generate quality data because of the language models that need to use a lot of existing data, and those existing data are simply not available. It's very hard for them to keep using other online data or extracting data. So they make use of what she calls data swarms, yeah. And as a result of people using compromised data, the companies using compromised data, they also cannot really generate text or visuals relating to specific types of information. And gender, sexuality, also of course race are aspects that of human identity that they cannot deal with very well, specifically imagery. Okay, we can move on. So basically, yeah, the data swarm, a lot of data that we're using to create AI is trained on pornography, for instance. And this is where that's part of the data swarm, that they couldn't make the decision to not include porn sites into the data that are needed to train the large language models. Already there you can see that it's a kind of very strange decision, perhaps, right? To train large language models and then not exclude pornography from that. So that is one of the main reasons why we are at this very polarized situation, that AI is easily used by people to recreate porn and exploitative porn, but also that AI has to be totally censored. Yeah? So this is all the things I talk about in my book. Here is the overview of the chapters. I'm not going to talk about that in detail. I'm going to move on to why I made the artwork. But I just want, you can have a quick look at that, and then also want to tell you that the artwork also came out of a more positive, optimistic vision in the chapter 5, techno-feminism. So I moved through all the negative information and tried to come out at something more positive for the future, let's say. So techno-feminism or cyber-feminism is something that inspired me to investigate AI, but also to use AI to have a more practical, artistic way of knowing it, of dealing with it. I thought techno-feminism as a philosophy also encourages us, all of us, as many people as possible, specifically maybe people that have been marginalized, to use technology or to develop technology so that it wouldn't be so dominated by a specific class of people, right? And techno-feminism was always had a kind of maybe naive or a kind of hope that this would be possible, that we can use technology in our own ways, and by either using it against the grain or by hacking into it and changing it around, or just by using it for benign, small projects. Yeah, so not that the entire corporate infrastructure has to be changed, but people could still use it. And this is a big question today, if that can still be done with AI, as a matter of fact. Donna Haraway, for instance, I think maybe you're familiar with her work as a cyber feminist. She's a very long-standing cyber feminist who has been writing in this way about technology, but also not just about technology, but about science fictions about tech and people, how people change in and around technologies, like cyborgs. Yeah? So cyborgs are combinations of humans and non-humans, and humans and technology. And she wrote a lot about cyborgs as positive figures that can also be politically more enabling, can be queer, for instance. They can diverge from the patriarchal or biblical origin stories of a lot of human thinking, humanistic philosophy. Yeah, so that is her kind of contribution, and many other people with her, thinking that we need exactly thinking through technologies and technological bodies to make positive changes. So here we go. So I started thinking about not only writing this book, but making an artwork, and started in 2024 when I was in another residency. And I also met another fellow there. I want to mention that quickly, Helen. Helen Paris was also at this residency, and she also was here then. So there's a kind of cross-fertilization of ideas. So this is in Italy, on the coast, really, on the Ligurian coast. This is the mansion where, yeah, you should all apply for this. Immediately. Villa de Pini. And so 8 to 10 people reside in this mansion and create work for 1 month. And so I was writing my book, and here's the view from my window. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world you can end up in, really. And so it changed my thinking. Yeah, so I wanted to mention places are important also when you are writing and thinking, and just like Grenoble is now, it started back there. So I started thinking about water, yeah, and the whole AI, or just AI and cyborgs and hybrid beings. So I became really influenced by these kind of mythologies of water and water hybrids, yeah? From being there, from feeling and hearing the water constantly, but also started doing a lot of research about it. And then here comes the drag professor at the same time. While I was in Italy, I was like, maybe I can do an artwork with a persona that I had been using when I was much younger, which you can see here. This is about 25 years ago when I was writing this book, Journeys in the Performance of Sex Art, which was a book about artists using also different types of sexuality and different types of technologies. And I interviewed artists, and I made all these journeys to different countries and wrote about that. It was a kind of ethnography and a travel book. And as I was writing this book, and I met a lot of queer people, a lot of transgender people, and so I also fell into this performative mode, maybe from hanging out with people or from thinking about it in an embodied way. I started doing some drag. And so this is 25 years ago. I would write with this persona, Dr. JACOBS, as you can see, but I also would do performance pieces, and sometimes I would use it as I was doing research and interview people. I would do the drag persona to do my field work, which was always really interesting, and people responded to it, likewise, so to speak. Yeah, if you change your own identity, people will also change their identity. So this was very interesting for me to see how people were relating to it. And I felt like I got a lot of information, a lot of really interesting information from people that was borderline between art and research. Yeah. So this was a long time ago, and then this figure was buried somehow. But when I was in Italy, I felt like, I need Dr. JACOBS again in my life. Yeah, now 25 years older. And I didn't know this was going to happen, but it just popped up. And I used AI to animate my old photos. So Dr. JACOBS and the water creatures, these two elements came together in the artwork. I went on a long sort of research strand to find those water hybrid creatures. For instance, this is, I mentioned this because some of us went to the library. Yeah, you remember? We saw a copy of this book, Theatrum Orbis Terrarium. So this is in Antwerp, where I'm born, and it's a very old world map, and it has these hybrids in the margins of the maps. I'll show you a picture of it. Yeah, so I started really looking for it in different types of cultural environments. And often I didn't know, I mean, like here, it's hard to know why these little figures are in the margins of these maps. Can only speculate about that. Sometimes it's a bit more clear, but I also did research in Japan and China. So this figure, Nure Onna, the wet woman, was also something I thought about for my artwork. And there's another artist, Ho Tzu Nhin. It's a Singaporean artist who did the Night March of 100 Monsters. It's an amazing project where he imagined also all these different hybrids. And some of them are based on mythologies, and some of them are invented by himself. And he makes little animations of all these monsters. It's fantastic, really wonderful. If you can see him, you should go have a look at it. But again, in the back of my mind, there's still the AI and deepfake book going on. And I look at these images, like, that's a bit like our deepfake porn, right? You take a beautiful human face, oftentimes a female face, and you synthesize it onto a horrific kind of body, which in our contemporary times is porn. Yeah, so you shame that face in a way by. So it was also interesting to see how these older forms are doing in a way the same thing, and that there's a whole history of that. Yeah, so just some more images from Japan. I went into my own rabbit hole with this research. I just kept looking for more and more images, and they're gorgeous. Look at this, kind of also queer, I think. This is an example from China, where there's a very old book, old sort of classic of mountains and seas, and also has a lot of these hybrid creatures in it. And from this book, I read it also that you enter a kind of realm where all these creatures are kind of walking around. And then if you enter this realm, you will also be changed as a human being. And it's also about eating, which I ended up using in my artwork, that you can also eat little elements from these hybrid animals, and your perception and your neurological system changes, actually. You can be healed from whatever you have. So now phase 2, here we are, making this artwork out of all this information that I was researching. Here's a video installation that I'm now trying to create. And it has 3 screens, left, right, and middle. And the middle screen is exaggerated. It's not going to be as big, but I thought it looked gorgeous, so I kept it like that. This is an AI job, obviously, this image. And so the person who is watching it will be able to be on a reclining chair and relax and look at these AI made creatures near the water, these water creatures. Yeah? And then I will tell a story in the 2 other monitors. So the 2 other monitors will give some more background information, which the viewers can either access or not. They can ignore it, and they can just be immersed in the central screen or not. The story, which you also saw on the first slide. So I came up with a story being here in Grenoble and being in the Massy, yeah? And I had researches beforehand. I had seen images of the Massy and gone through your website and so on. And I thought, this is really reminded me of this Frankenstein story, that people here are doing a lot of experiments, a lot of art experiments. So I was thinking of a story where Dr. JACOBS, the drag professor, goes to Grenoble and starts making an AI prof, an AI version of a human professor, but that AI professor escapes from the lab. Yeah? And then the AI professor escapes and has to be found, just like in Frankenstein. Frankenstein is a lot about the scientist looking for the creature, the monster, and the monster looking for him. They kind of follow each other around. So this was my inspiration also, and so the fact that there's the mountains here, because that happened on the other side in Geneva, the Frankenstein story. So I was kind of obsessed by these mountains before I got here, so to speak. And then I got here and looked at it, and I thought, this setting is really quite perfect for what I'm trying to make. So here I am, and here I am trying to create videos by cross-dressing, by walking, and also by generating these water creatures. And so I've now started doing that for a couple of months. And now I'm also thinking about this process of using AI and how it can change my thinking from writing the big book. It was a bit hard to crawl out of that, of course, but I think this is really interesting for me. So as I write, it's an addictive and frustrating process of creating AI movies. It's definitely very frustrating. I often make things that I find quite ugly, and I cannot find the right kind of AI scenery for myself, but it's also totally addictive, actually, as a matter of fact. And because also I use the website OpenArt AI, which you have to pay a membership for, but it gives you tokens. It's like a game, so to speak. So every time you create a movie, it takes tokens away from you. Yeah, and every beginning of the month, you will get a new set of tokens. This sounds silly to you, but this is how they all operate. Every Gen AI platform probably, most likely operates like that. Yeah. So it's addictive. They make you addicted to it, so that you're going to use more tokens. Yeah, and so I'm very aware of that. But it's also truly the case that I love doing it. So here's some of the water creatures. Yeah, so they are in bubbles. I kind of am making videos, see like us. Let me just show you. Here they are. Here I'm walking, and they're following me, the creatures, the water creatures. You know this. Okay, there we go. And here's another one. Okay, so to get to these creatures in the bubbles, I just used like stick figures, because actually I cannot draw at all. I can only do stick figures. And then I thought, why don't I try with that? And so yes, AI responds very well to stick figures, and that's not a big surprise. Yeah, if you give it more simple information, it can interpret it for you. And it's much lower resolution too to deal with. So here are my stick figures, and here I'm turning them into water creatures, and they're even kissing. Yeah. So some more. So I'm doing a lot of these drawings, and I'm turning them into creatures, and then putting them in the bubble, and then it becomes part of a video scene. They're very short, of course. Movies, they're from 5 to 10 seconds. So I have to edit that back into something else. Yeah, so that is all that I can get from the platform that I'm using. It's a 10-second video. Yeah. When I make these, I have to do this about 50 times before I get something that I like. Yeah. So it's a lot of trial and error. And then if you like, you can keep editing sequences. You can take the last still and keep building on it to make longer video sequences. Sorry, I am running out of time, I think, right? But I'm almost at the end, sorry. Yeah. So like I'm saying, I'm using this process to think about AI and the AI problems. And when I started out, for instance, you generate what I call AI kitsch, a lot of kitsch. Yeah, a lot of banal, unrefined, generic visuals will be generated, especially if you don't start from an image but use just a text prompt. If you go from text to image, without using an existing image. It's just horrible, sorry. So I don't use this. I usually start with images and modify them a little bit. Yeah, that's for me more satisfying. But here, for instance, I was working with these nymphs, mermaid figures, and then they came out looking very stereotyped. Which is no surprise because the LLM is only giving you a composite of all the data it's been trained on, right? So it doesn't, of course, it's not going to do very original work for you. Yeah. The other problem, the second problem, of course, to go back to my research, is the censorship. For instance, here's an example from ChatGPT. A young male swimmer with a jellyfish head. Now you understand why I have this prompt, because it's part of my story. But this to ChatGPT was a real problem, this prompt. First of all, rejected, because they call it body horror. Yeah? Yeah, indeed. Isn't that what you're supposed to do with AI? Is to make composites like that? I thought this is, but no, you cannot change the humans. You cannot give humans grotesque biological traits, actually. So how do you solve this problem? Then you have to say that you're making a fantasy creature, not a human. Yeah? So you use an anime style, an animation style. Yeah? Solution, this. So now we're okay. Now we can go on. But then this is what ChatGPT gives to me. These underage girls swimming. Yeah? So you see what I mean? That's just the problem. It's trained on all this swampy information. Yeah? And that's why I cannot depart from it, so to speak. So this, yeah, so the problem of sexualization is it's clear that if I'm trying to generate swimmers, I have to be very careful. And then sometimes it gives you the solution. It has to wear a sleek fantasy water outfit. So here's the outfit. Yeah. So if you use this outfit, you can generate it. And I think this is really funny, you know. And not that I object too much to the outfit, but it's also what, you know, not really creating the solution for me. And then the thing about age, so I had said a young swimmer, but then this is what ChatGPT gives me. So that's, to me, underage, right? So I'm not saying underage. They are giving that, and it's being generated. So I said a 20-year-old, yeah? And then I get this. Yeah, so still quite young, not underage, but still quite young looking. The last example is sometimes I try to, again, I'm in love with these cherubs figures in the history of painting, like this beautiful painting. So I sometimes animate them. And I'm not using that because that would be stealing somebody else's artwork, but as an experiment. But then again, you cannot even animate that with Gen AI because it's rejected for nudity. And you can only do it if you add, yeah. Right, and then they forgot to give this guy here a suit. So sometimes AI makes a mistake and you're like, yes, right? So, but most of all, you get this message, not safe for work. So this is, yeah, often when I'm working, this is what I get. Censored one more time. So this is my conclusion. There's pessimism about AI in my book, in my artwork, but also a lot of joyful experiments with these creatures and non-conforming bodies. So again, I have very mixed feelings, but I'm very glad I'm making the artwork because it's definitely making me feel closer to what the problems are and also the solutions, what you can actually do. And I'm really enjoying the process a lot. So thank you for your attention. Thanks a lot.